Introduce it. Okay, welcome everyone to our session on KUSPs in PowerTeacher Pro. And we wanted to just bring everyone together just to do a quick brief overview on how we got to this point here and what our plan is to support entering KUSPs into PowerTeacher Pro for our grade 5 and 6 ELA and math classrooms. So we're just going to take just a few moments to kind of set the stage, and then I'm going to pass it over to Sandy to just walk you through an example in the gradebook. At this point, Sandy, if I'm not mistaken, if people look, they will be able to find those KUSPs in their math gradebook, right? So we'll use that as an example, and then soon we'll have the ELA and L outcomes, the KUSPs populated in there as well too. So why don't we get started? I'm just going to share my screen. I just have a couple notes in a slide deck that I'd like to just review with everybody. We'll go through that. Sandy will show an example, and then we will open it up to some questions. So Sandy, if something goes awry with the recording and things like that, I'm not on two screens, so I'm just going to switch back and forth here. So please interrupt me if you need to clarify anything, if I could ask you that. All right, so just starting out, we're well into new curriculum implementation. Chinook's Edge was not part of any of the pilot opportunities over the course of previous years with 4 to 6 new curriculum, and so we're definitely in the first year of implementing this curriculum, and as such, the first year of designing our gradebook to really support the implementation of this new curriculum and the new architecture of this curriculum. I've linked a document there, and I'll put it into the comments here as well too, into the question box, just so that if you are interested ever to follow up with the actual architecture of the new curriculum, you can feel free to do so. The good old days of curriculum before was really focused on a large number of outcomes, and the new architecture has definitely done a significant shift. As you have noticed in the gradebook right now, is that the number of outcomes has significantly been reduced since in this new architecture versus the previous curriculum. And one of the reasons for that is really the design of the curriculum. Before we walk through that piece there, the new curriculum architecture will be the way that K-12 curriculum will be rolling out. So this isn't just 5 to 6. This really is the entire K-12 curriculum that does follow the new architecture. One of the pieces that we oftentimes would look at in the previous architecture was that we oftentimes asked for that detail, and we spent a lot of time unpacking outcomes in order to get that detail that we wanted. And so when we kind of asked that question, we did get it. In this new curriculum, we definitely got more detail in terms of what the curriculum looks like, and I'll show some examples of that as we get into this. To get to this point here, we did look to other jurisdictions in terms of advice they had, in terms of how they set up PowerTeacher Pro and what they learned from their piloting experiences. And what I can tell you is that many of the jurisdictions did avoid, in particular in the implementation year, putting all the KUSPs in because there was such a large number of them, and it really made the gradebook itself unmanageable. And so our initial step into PowerTeacher Pro this year was to not put the KUSPs in. But we did listen very intently to you as teachers in classrooms and saying, without the KUSPs, we just didn't have the ability to provide that detail to students and parents about the child's learning and the reporting of outcomes. And so we heard that. We met as a team. We met with a couple different communities to get some input, and we really believe there's a solution here that's doable, that I think is manageable without being overwhelmed like some of the other jurisdictions noted, but still focuses on the outcome in terms of what needs to be reported. But we'll show some more evidence of that, or some examples of that, as we move forward. So Moving forward, I'm just going to quickly go through this. When we talk about the architecture of the new curriculum, and you can do your own, your own reading on this too, and we'll share this slide deck with you. But there is that whole concept of the organizing idea. And when you look in the curriculum, Alberta Ed, when you actually look into the curricular documents on New Alberta Learn, you can see this here. But really, that organizing idea is really that overarching statement given over a section or a subject area discipline that really helps to communicate the goals of education. So that's that first piece that you'll see. The next piece is that guiding question that really helps to frame the learning outcome, right? It really oftentimes has those questions that are intended to kind of spark that curiosity and wonder with our students. The important part is, and this is really explicitly stated in the architecture and in the guidance documents as well too, and it's the only one that specifically highlights, and there's a very clear statement that the learning outcome is where student achievement must be assessed and reporting. And so we are following through with that, and Sandy will show an example of where that's really where the summative assessment at least needs to take place. Now, moving forward, we do now have the addition of the knowledge, understandings, and skills and procedures, so the KUSPs, okay? And the knowledge really is that including facts, but it builds towards that understanding and skills and procedures. The understanding is really focused for students on on how and what they can apply with what they've learned, okay? The skills and procedures are really about those processes that students will develop as they achieve the learning outcome. So when we think about those 5 pieces, we've kind of boiled it down to putting together the knowledge and understandings, and then also looking at those skills and procedures. And the best way to describe it is, when we think about knowledge and understanding, what those really are what students need to know and understand within the curriculum. And the skills and procedures are really what the students will do, right? And so those are those specific tasks that you as teachers in classroom will be asking the students to do. Ultimately, we're really looking at aligning that instruction in the classroom to the KUSPs to enable students to have a clear path to the learning of the intended outcome, okay? And that teachers also design their lessons and assessments with those KUSPs, so those knowledge, understanding, skills, and processes in mind, to really ensure that well-rounded, comprehensive learning experience. But when you leave this meeting, what we're really hoping that really we remember are the 2 pieces, that the knowledge and understandings that you see in your gradebook really frame what the students need to know and understand, and the skills and processes are what students will do. So finally, before I pass it over to Sandy to walk through a gradebook example, at the end of the day, it is the outcome in the gradebook that provides the opportunity to report summatively on student learning. But we've designed now the ability for teachers, for you, to select particular KUSPs that help to support that reporting of that outcome. 3 things that we really want to talk about that really align to it, and what puts a checkbox beside us on saying, is this the right way moving forward? We do really want to ensure that our teachers, that you as professionals, really can rely on that reasoned judgment. It's very clearly identified in our teaching quality standards that us as teachers support the use of reasoned judgment about the evidence used to determine and report that student level of learning. So what do we mean by that? It's that professional autonomy that we really want to respect and we want to support you with. When we go to that research, right, and that question of, do we have a complete picture of what a student knows and can do? So that observation, conversation, and product, we believe the use of the KUSPs and how we've designed it here really can also put a checkbox on that too. And then at the end of the day, just that reminder that we always need to talk about is, can we answer that question about does our student, our parent, and the teacher know that story behind the grade? And just a reminder that this gradebook is just one piece of all of those other conversations we have at parent-teacher interviews, that communication we have with parents, the report card as well. And so when you put all those together, we think that the outcome connected with the KUSPs and all of those other communication methods we use can really help to provide that quality in that story. So With that said, I'm going to pass it to Sandy. She's going to take over the screen and show us an example of where those CUSPs are located and how to use them in our gradebook. So I'm going to stop this and I'm going to pass it over to Sandy.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Justin, can you let me know when you can see it?
And I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So we wanted to kind of walk you through what this will look like in your gradebook so you have a feel for what your options are when you do this. So I've created just a basic formative assessment right now called Divisibility of Natural Numbers because I wanted to be really helpful in helping parents understand what it was I was assessing. And I created it just so I could get a few of the items in there so I wouldn't take up too much time. So I'm just going to edit what's there right now. And I will go to the standards section. So you will notice if I look at show all, that I still see the normal learner outcomes at the top section. So right now I see number, RC is for report card, and then I can see the learner outcomes that fit within number in there. And then I scroll down, there's algebra, patterns, and so on. But then if I keep going and going and going, eventually I'll see, I accidentally skipped past it. I will see the adapted program section here. So that was the bottom level in our previous setup. So there was nothing below adapted program before this. But then we added all of the CUSPs below that. So before we get too deep into it, I want to explain the difference between the numbering. So here you'll see this is statistics. So that's the original statistics that goes to the report card. And there's the statistic outcome that feeds into statistics. But when I scroll down below adapted program, I'll see my numbering has changed to say CUSP, and that the header says number CUSPs. And then I'll have below that, I'll have the learner outcome, and then I'll have all of the CUSPs that relate to that learner outcome. So the reason we've got these two different numbering systems, and the reason you'll see number in there twice and you'll see learner outcome number 1 in there twice for numbers, is because the learner outcomes are the parts that we summatively assess and summatively report on. And the CUSPs are the parts that we may choose to include in our gradebook, and we report on them formatively. So everything without the word CUSP in it can be used for formative assessment or summative. Summative ones will report into or feed into a report card. And then of course, anything that's formatively assessed or anything within the number CUSP section. So anything below the adapted program, those will only be reported formatively. They will never feed anywhere summatively. Again, that's because we're expected to report summatively on the learner outcome, and we use the CUSP in order to help us determine where that summative piece comes from. So if you choose to, you can select these CUSPs below. Again, you'll never pick the hats because those are just the headers for each of the sections. So what I've done at this point is I've gone through and I've picked for an assessment a few of my learner outcomes for a number strand. And then I went down and I chose some of the CUSPs that I felt also fit there that I could report formatively on in here. But you'll notice there's a lot of these, and I would not want to be scrolling through all of the time in order to find the one that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go to the filter at the top. And one of the ones that I'd like to add in here is express the area of a rectangle. Now I could type out the whole thing, or if I wanted to, I could very carefully choose one word, like maybe a rectangle, or I might choose area to be able to narrow it down to the pieces that I'm looking for. So if I just type in area, I can find the CUSP that I'm looking for. So it'll help narrow it down, but I'm just going to type in the whole thing for now. Express the area of a rectangle. There it is. And I'll add it in here. Now over here it says count and grade. I can uncheck that if I wish, but what I do know to be true is it will never ever, if it has CUSP in the code here, it will never feed summatively anywhere, no matter what. So I've added that in there, and then I'll save and close. And then if I go to score my assignment, I will be able to see all of the learner outcomes I've already added in there. So I've got some here, and then I've got, at the end, I can see the cusp in here as well. So I can go ahead and score this as I normally would score this, with knowing that the cusps are there for information purposes, they're formative, and they'll help me inform what the summative assessment looks like. When it sounds like, was there a question?
That was me, Sandy.
Okay, go ahead.
Just to add in there, one of the reasons we really like this was just that ability when you think about using those CUSPs to really inform that reporting or that understanding of student performance on the outcome. We've thought this would be a really good approach for a teacher to be able to quickly see how those students are performing in those specific skills, those specific tasks we're asking them to do, because many of those CUSPs, especially the skills and processes, are like that. And so it really gives you a quick overview in order to make that judgment in terms of what that summative assessment should look like in the outcome. So we really think it'll work well within that whole assessment process.
Absolutely. So the key to remember for all of this was that if it has the word CUSP, it will only ever report formatively, and you don't have to use those if you don't wish to use them. They can just be an extra piece of evidence that you'd like to share it with parents, depending on how you complete your assessments. So anything above adapted can be used for formative or summative, and anything below adapted can only be used formatively, even if you include it in a summative assessment. So I can open it now to questions if that would be helpful, if anybody has any questions.
Before we turn the recording off, Sandy, just so that we can have this for anyone that's not there, as we enter into this over the next number of months, we are going to connect back to you just to get feedback on what's working well, what adjustments we have to make, because as you're all aware, we will be implementing science next year. And so it is going to be important for us to know, as we create the gradebook into next year, what adjustments do we have to make as we start getting all of the curricula into gradebook. And so we will definitely be checking into you to see how things are going and what refinements we have to make. So,
and we're just waiting on English outcomes or English CUSP to be uploaded for grade 5 and 6, and we'll send out an email as soon as we hear about that as well.
All the 5 and 6 are uploaded from mathematics, so that's accurate?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right, well, that's where the recording will end. If you have any questions, for those of you that are watching this at a later date, feel free to please connect with us at Learning Services. We're here to help to support. If you have any questions or need a little bit of support in any of this, please give us a ring and we'll be there to help. Thank you very much.